Well, good morning. Good morning. What a great day to be a warrior. All right. Well, I want to say a warm welcome to our cadets for our inaugural Warrior Wisdom event. I'd also like to extend a warrior welcome to parents, trustees, faculty, staff, and community friends who have joined us this morning. I am really looking forward to this academic year and what we have planned for the cadets. The Warrior Wisdom program, this speaker program, is a commitment to you, cadets, and it's designed specifically for you, cadets. The purpose is to motivate and encourage you to learn from others and use that knowledge to be successful on campus and beyond. By exposing you to speakers from different backgrounds, we hope to inspire you to be well-rounded and thoughtful young men who strive for excellence. As part of our commitment to you, we have planned events that showcase our academy principles that are right on the building behind me. Honor, integrity, respect, responsibility, compassion, and gratitude, all under the umbrella of leadership. In a moment, you will hear from an Army and Navy Academy alumnus who embodies all of these characteristics. When this warrior speaks, everyone listens. His career since he graduated from the Academy in 1959 has been committed to improving his community and our nation. As you listen to his words, I hope you think about your own paths and what you hope to achieve in the future. Now, please welcome to the stage your 2016-2017 Battalion Commander, Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Junyao Lee, who will introduce our speaker to the Warrior Wisdom stage.
Good morning, cadets, campus visitor, and Army and Navy Academy faculty and staff. I'm honored to introduce the inaugural Warrior Wisdom speaker, General William Crouch. General Crouch graduated from ANA in 1959 after serving his senior year as the Battalion Commander. Even though General Crouch's 36-year career in the Army has taken him to Korea and almost every country in Europe, he has managed to remain involved with the Academy. Currently serves on the Board of Trustees as Vice President. General Crouch also serves on the boards of the Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America and the Keck Institute for International and Strategic Studies. He's visiting us from Colorado, where he and his wife, Vicky, live. Now that he's retired, we are lucky to have an opportunity to learn from his experience, and I feel privileged to welcome our 1959 NA Battalion Commander, General William Crouch.
Well, thanks, Mr. Lee, General and Mrs. Bartell, and a real welcome to an old friend, Chairman Emeritus of the Board of Trustees, who with Mary, traveled from Wyoming, Jack Wyatt, to be here today for also a meeting of the Board of Trustees. As General Bartel explained, this is the first in a series of presentations to you over this year. It's an honor, of course, to be invited to be the inaugural speaker, but it also gave me pause to consider the message. As you're members of an ROTC unit, all in uniform, it seemed appropriate to address leadership in its military form, and that's what I'm going to do. Then became the challenge of how to go about it. You're an international group, and all you have to do is look at you to understand that. So instead of focusing on purely American leaders, I'm concentrating on the principles. I'm going to use a couple of other nationalities as the examples. I also look for a message in an address that I gave to the Royal Military College at Sandhurst a few years ago, which seemed to resonate with this group. It focused on the character and experience of two leaders. Again, neither one U.S., but exemplifying some of the principles that I'd like you to think about. I chose these two because the circumstances in which they were thrust were so difficult that the leadership traits and the character they displayed was totally obvious. One's a British soldier, Viscount William Slim, who finally served as a field marshal and chief of the United Kingdom's defense staff after his World War II service in Burma. The second is Korean, General Paek Sun-yuk, who commanded a South Korean division in the 1950 Korean War. He later also became chief of staff of the Korean Army. General Slim, whose book, Defeat into Victory, I would recommend to anyone here. His leadership under adverse circumstances captured the idea with a quote: "You're all right as long as you're winning. I'm a hell of a general when I'm winning. But it's when you're not winning that the real test of leadership is made." In the early days of World War II, General Slim commanded a division in the Middle East, which he had raised, selected, trained, deployed to Iraq, and formed a very close relationship with all of his troopers, all of his individual soldiers. Regardless of his personal desires, however, the war in the Far East, namely Burma, now Myanmar, desperately required first leadership. Slim was appointed by Prime Minister Churchill commander. When he arrived in Burma, he inherited forces that had faced defeat, were hungry, literally, undersupplied, many diseased, isolated, and truly ignored, because that particular theater was far removed from the mainstream of action by the Axis and Allies. The British Army had just barely escaped from Rangoon. He had to deal with hostile jungle, a hostile, sometimes neutral population, and one of his greatest difficulties, insufficient, almost non-existent intelligence about the enemy. In other words, he did not know much about those who were defeating him. Slim recognized that his troops' power and readiness was developed and sustained by maintaining physical condition. Not letting yourself get tired to the point of breakdown, not taking counsel of your fears, and by always looking for something positive that you can communicate to your troopers regardless. I knew that was going to happen. Regardless of the circumstances you're confronting. It doesn't matter how hot or cold, how wet or dry, how afraid or confident. As a leader entrusted with your soldiers' lives and your nation's security, you always have to find the wherewithal to solve whatever problem or situation that you're confronting, and to be able to inspire others to succeed. There's always some sort of solution to any problem if we have the drive and determination to find it. And it's very helpful if you can maintain a sense of humor in the process of all of this. Slim told a story which said, I remember once stepping out of a tank. I was using a tank because it was the only means of communication and transportation I had left. I saw waiting for me 2 of my subordinate commanders with a couple of staff officers and 1 or 2 other fellows standing in a melancholy group. The division was cut off. We had no means of getting it out, and I didn't think we could last very long, or it didn't look as if we could. So I put the best face I could on it. I tried to look cheerful and said, well, gentlemen, it might be worse. And one of those unspeakable smartasses said, how, sir? The only thing I could think of saying was, well, it might be raining. And in an hour it was. Field Marshal Slim knew what it was like to lead soldiers in good times and in bad, winning and losing. To his vast credit, he never let unfavorable circumstances prevent him from maintaining the motivation of and improving his troopers' condition. If your command is down to 1 tank and some demoralized infantrymen, your options are pretty limited, even non-existent. Slim knew that he must not allow himself personally to be defeated. He knew that his state of mind, his attitude, would be the deciding factor under the most adverse circumstances. To project that positive attitude, to be resilient enough, even under the most adverse circumstances, was to encourage others to persevere. That was the true challenge. Field Marshal Slim was a brilliant tactician in general, but mostly he had some key traits essential to a leader in any profession. He had willpower, overwhelming willpower. He refused to be defeated. He had the stamina through his own conditioning to continue to push his troops forward. He maintained a sense of humor as he stepped out of that tank, and somehow developed and maintained this positive attitude. His character, competence, and ability to succeed, despite unbelievable odds, made him the revered elder statesman of the British Army. His example is still studied worldwide, and particularly in the United States. Another revered and well-admired leader internationally was Baek Sun-yeop. As you know, at the end of World War II, the Korean Peninsula was divided at the 38th parallel, with a hostile communist state in the north and the Republic of Korea in the south. In response to threats and aggressive posturing, the Republic of Korea's military force, composed of 5 infantry divisions, were deployed in defensive positions south of the 38th parallel. July 1950, General Baek Sun-yeop was commander of one of those 5 divisions. His appointment to command one of South Korea's divisions was not just a military order, but an investment of confidence by President Syngman Rhee in then Colonel Baek as the division commander. He was entrusted with more than simply the command of that division. It was truly the protection of the state. It was the protection of the sanctity of South Korea. It was a personal charge. This is an emotional thing. This is not something that you read an order and are given that kind of authority. This was face-to-face from the president to a colonel. I entrust you with the welfare of your portion of South Korea. And he took that challenge. On the night of the attack by the North Koreans, he was attending a conference in Seoul, 20 miles south of his division command post. Alerted to the attack, he then drove his own Jeep north, only to find his and other divisions in total disarray. Running to the rear with the North Koreans in hot pursuit and intermingled with his own 1st Infantry Division. Finally reaching what was left of his command post, he gathered the few soldiers still alive and conducted his own retreat back to the south. When he reached the Han River, which runs right through Seoul, so about 20 miles south of the 38th, he found that all of the bridges had been blown. So he had to leave his equipment and alone at this point swam this quarter-mile river. Reaching the south side, he was barely in condition to survive, let alone command or lead. But completing the swim and under fire from the enemy on the north bank, he was without weapon, only in a partial uniform, didn't have any pants, no boots, and certainly no division. Remember, he had this personal charge from the president of the country, Syngman Rhee, to protect the nation. Yet his division, in its first test of combat, had failed. He, Baek Sun-yeop, given this challenge by his president, had failed. A lesser commander might have given up, continued retreating, but instead he began to pull troops from the river, physically down at the river, pulling them out, putting them along an embankment, which I have walked, into defensive positions along this slight raise of ground overlooking the river. He created squads out of individual soldiers who had been defeated He formed the squads into platoons and the platoons into companies. He found weapons. He found ammunition. All of this is under fire, you guys. And he equipped them one by one and repelled the next attack by the North. Now, it's far from being over. Gradually, he then started to reform his division. Again, the 1st Infantry Division. And along with the rest of the South Korean Army, withdrew to the Naktong River to the south, forming the Busan perimeter. And by the way, Paek Sun-Yup's book, Busan to Pyongyang, is also worth reading. He reconstituted his division and led the attack north, becoming one of two, the other, the 1st Cavalry Division, to enter and secure Pyongyang, the enemy capital. As it appeared they were nearing victory, there was a new attack to the north. Pak's initial warning was a massive artillery strike which destroyed his command post. It destroyed all of the division's artillery and destroyed an infantry regiment. In a repeat of the initial attack which had happened 8 months prior, he lost countless soldiers, most of his subordinate commanders, his chief of staff, who was his best friend and confidant, and now in midwinter had lost all cohesion of his division in a full-scale retreat again to the south. Yet again, despite the division's losses, the cold, the ice, and the snow of winter, he pulled the division back together and established a defense. It's an unbelievable example of stamina, same as Slim, drive, same as Slim, and determination. Proof that regardless of culture, background, training, strong leaders are resilient. They never, never give up. And they always look for positive ways to affect the fight. I met General Paek in Korea, and through numerous breakfasts, which he enjoyed, had the opportunity to ask him how he did this. Where did he find the resiliency to keep his troops focused? And where did he find the strength to pull his units back together? He tried to explain this, but it all came back to the leadership principles that I've mentioned earlier. The things that I noticed that he and Slim shared, they were both totally self-effacing. I could not find an ego. It may have been there, but I couldn't find it. It was a quiet confidence. It was tremendous willpower and physical as well as mental stamina to be able to stand up to overwhelming power. Both of these leaders knew adversity, had the will to overcome it, to inspire subordinates to continue, not to take counsel of their fears, to find ways to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles, and in doing so, they won. So I would, as you go through this school year, have you think about, particularly on the dark days, those days where you are confronted with some tough decisions and some tough circumstances. The kinds of resiliency and the kind of spirit that is necessary individually, as well as for your subordinates, to overcome whatever you're facing. Remember Slutton's statement, it could be raining, but that too can be overcome.